Why would we have ambassadors? Hello and welcome to the May 8th edition of the Bubb Report. As the Russian-led invasion of Ukraine drags on, the food security implications for Caribbean and developing country economies continue to be dire. Even before the pandemic ravaged the region, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation and Agriculture painted a grim picture of the food security reality in the region. According to ICA, between 2019 and 2020, the prevalence of hunger in Latin America and the Caribbean increased by 2 percentage points, meaning that 13.8 million more people suffered from hunger than they did in 2019. Over the same period, moderate or severe food security increases were even steeper at 9 percentage points. This week on our program, we discuss the fallout of the Russian invasion on Grenada's own food security and how Grenada's agricultural sector is building capacity to mitigate against these negative impacts. Also on the report, we sit with a panel of community and political party activists in the Grenadian diaspora about their view on the upcoming elections. Historically, the two main political parties in Grenada and independent candidates have relied on their support groups in North America and Europe to assist in their political activities at home. Prime ministers, leaders of the opposition, as well as political party leaders have made it an annual ritual to journey to cities across North America and Europe to give Grenadians living abroad an update on their work back home. These visits usually involve town hall meetings, social gatherings, and independence celebrations. The panel segment will trace the history of these organizations and discuss its importance against the backdrop of the upcoming election. We welcome our guests, Senator Roderick Sinclair, the Farmers and Fishers representative in the Grenada Senate, Valerie Gordon, a Montreal-based community activist, Gemma Rayburn-Baines, also a Montreal-based political and community activist, and John Crow Alexander, community activist and philanthropist located in Brooklyn, New York. We thank you for joining us. A pleasant good morning to our viewers and listeners, and at this time I wish to extend a happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers in Grenada and in the Grenadian diaspora respectively. We thank you for your work and your service as mothers in shaping our lives and in shaping our communities. As they say, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Now for our opening editorial. The Bubb Report celebrates its second anniversary on Tuesday, May 10th. 2 years, how time flies. When I started this program in the wake of George Grant's untimely passing 2 years ago, my vision was and continued to be a program that would offer quality journalism content to an audience that has been clamoring for improvement on the Grenadian media landscape, even if it means producing the program from the diaspora. The Bubb Report was also meant to continue the legacy of Sunday morning radio programming pioneered by great broadcasters Paul Roberts and George Grant, two legends of Grenadian radio. My commitment to you, our audience, is that I will continue to set a particular standard of journalistic integrity in a time when people are less interested in the hard news format of broadcasting and more inclined to obtain information from sources with clearly defined agendas and biases. We will continue to tell the truest story possible. We will treat those we interview and cover with firmness, fairness, and professionalism. Whenever we quote, edit, or otherwise interpret what people tell us, we aim to be faithful to their meaning in order to truthfully represent their stories. We do our best to report thoroughly, but we know that mistakes will inevitably be made. Errors of omission and partial truths can inflict great damage on our credibility and the representation of the stories we cover. When we find that we can't deliver all of the answers to important questions, we will explain our shortcomings and work to fill any gaps in our reporting. Through our reporting here at the Bubb Report, we will continue to avoid exaggeration and conjecture. We do not mix fiction with our reporting, and we edit and present information honestly. When editing, we seek to add impact while clarifying our journalism, never to slant or distort the story. We maintain this high level of accuracy and professionalism through several rounds of verification and conversations between writer, source, and producer. The publisher of journalism, whether a media corporation answering to advertisers and shareholders, or a journalist with his own personal beliefs and priorities, must show an ultimate allegiance to its audience and viewers. We will strive to put the public interest and the truth above our own self-interest or assumptions. Commitment to the public also means the Bubb Report should seek to present a representative picture of constituent groups in society. Ignoring certain citizens has the effect of disenfranchising them. Additionally, we are committed to not becoming seduced by sources, intimidated by power, or compromised by self-interest. On a deeper level, it speaks to an independence of spirit and an open-mindedness and intellectual curiosity that helps us see beyond our own class or economic status, race, ethnicity, religion, gender, political affiliation, or ego. Journalistic independence is more than neutrality. While editorialists and commentators are not neutral, the source of their credibility is still their accuracy, intellectual fairness, and ability to inform, not their devotion to a certain group or outcome. In our independence, however, we must avoid straying into arrogance, elitism, isolation, or nihilism. Journalism should also attempt to fairly represent varied viewpoints and interests in society and to place them in context rather than highlight only the conflicting fringes of a debate. Accuracy and truthfulness also require that the public discussion not neglect points of common ground or instances where problems are not just identified, but also solved. Journalism, then, is more than providing an outlet for discussion or adding one's voice to the conversation. It carries with it a responsibility to improve the quality of debate by providing verified information and intellectual rigor. A forum without regard for facts fails to inform and degrades rather than improve the quality and effectiveness of citizen decision making. And that is our commitment, folks, to continue to hold a particular standard here at the Bubb Report. And whenever we fail to meet that standard, we trust that you would call us out and hold us accountable. And at this time, I wish to welcome my first guest for the Bubb Report today. He is Senator Roderick St. Clair. Senator, welcome to the program. This is the second or third time that you are appearing on the program, and we are certainly grateful to have you today.
Thank you so much, Kelon. Thank you. And it's my pleasure to represent my constituents on this important medium. I want to, at the same time, congratulate you on your achievement and your goals and vision. And of course, if you permit me to also wish all the mothers, not only in the farming community, but at the world at large. And also, whilst we do this, I know we have many grieving mothers, in particular the mother of young Bell, who would have met in that accident with the police, sorry, with the Coast Guard, a fisherman. And of course, I want to extend officially here my sincere condolences to the family and the rest of the community in this matter. Thank you.
Absolutely, Senator, and I'm sure this is a critical and busy time for you. I mean, when is there a time that's not critical for agriculture? It is certainly the backbone of the economy, right?
Well. You see, for me, and I will say for those who are concerned and those who are really dedicated and serious, it is always a busy time. For those who is not, they would find them focusing on many other things, whilst many their future is in danger. We not to show if there's food tomorrow. So
Yeah.
we need to keep focusing on that, because without food, without life, nothing else happens. And I want us as a nation to be very cognizant of this matter.
Now, Senator, at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were many pronouncements in Grenada and around the Caribbean, and of course in many policy spaces in the developing world, with respect to using the COVID crisis as an opportunity to shore up food security capacity. What have we learned since then, and what have we done to turn this crisis into an opportunity? Have we really turned this crisis into an opportunity?
Well, I think what we know is that, as persons, and some persons say it gladly, that COVID exposed everything. It's an embarrassment not only for the individual saying that, but it's for everyone, not only in Grenada, in different parts of the world. And we must go back. If we go back in 76, when I was a young boy, I remember the period of the crisis where we had similar situations, food crisis and so on in Grenada and the rest of the Caribbean. But at the same time, what COVID has shown to us is that the fragility of human has been in existence, because it shows that the focus on trying to remain healthy became very important. The focus on medicine versus healthy food, which we're supposed to be eating and having all available. But it also exposes us in terms of the cost, because as the demand increased, cost of items rose. We had also companies, operations had to be shut down. Our farming community, the different persons, actors in the value chain were affected. And so all of these create what I would call a panic. The question is, did we really panic? I would say, from where I sit, I think the Grenadian public panic, but I'm not too sure if at the national level, at the policy level, there was any panic about food, because it was about how do you get injection, how do you get medication, how do you get incubators and all of those fancy words. But the issue of food was still left for the average farmer, who has been catching his hell all the time, to still find a way to make blood out of stone to ensure that persons get food. So even myself, many persons you see are trying to get food. But after a certain time, it becomes scarce, because the inputs, the seeds, and all of a sudden, then we start speaking about, oh, we need security. And remember, Kellan, that just around that same time, you had the situation where St. Vincent and the volcano, where certain amount of food and animals, livestock was coming from St. Vincent. There was another panic. The question is, what did we learn? I will say we have learned nothing, because today we are still panicking. And it has gotten worse with the issues of the logistics throughout the world, the same Ukraine-Russia war that you're speaking about, and we are still flat-footed. We have a tourist season just about ending. We have thousands of tourists in here. Were we panicking how we are going to feed these individuals with more mouths to be fed in this country. I would say that we have not learned, because if we had learned by now, we should have had, which I had called for, some national food security committee that is cabinet appointed or legislated to ensure that you have the main actors involved, that food security can be guaranteed for the next X amount. In fact, about 8 to 10 years ago, we in Grenada had what they call the National Zero Hunger Initiative. Maybe that was the first initiative since the revolution that really was to focus on how do we ensure the issue of zero hunger. Somehow, when you look at the budget that was allocated for those, it basically died natural death and that disappeared. We had a national food security, food and nutrition security policy, which was connected to a regional program that also died a natural death. So have we learned? The citizens, those who have to eat, are those that are trying to see how can I best find ways to have food. So they would get a barrel from their families away. They would do some little backyard gardening to ensure that they have some food stuff. Because at the national level, we're supposed to ensure that the nation survive, because that's our obligation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing much is happening. Nothing. And you can do an index. Nothing. Of course, there would be the note of, well, petrol was reduced, electricity was reduced, certain key basic items, salt, fish, and other items was reduced. But at the end of the day, that impact is still not much. When you look also at the issue of our school feeding program, because this is a big issue. Because you have now families, remember some of them may not even be working, having to find food for their children to go to school. And if you had to say a revamped school feeding program, which is the burden on the parents, that to me would also have helped and create also more local demand. So you look at the cost of inputs. Of course, you cannot just say, well, government just subsidize and reduce the cost of inputs just like that. But if you don't have if you have an organized program, you can see how you can create those interventions. And the last thing I would say in terms of that first response, Kellan, is that we have to look at what happened in the days of the colonialism, where Europe had all those big estates and controlling the food supply for their people, their population within Europe. What we have done in Grenada over the last years is keep cutting up the estates, divesting them to foreigners. And when you look at what has happened, our whole production capacity disappear. And so the government again is flat-footed, going back to the private owners and say, can you put your land in land bank? Can you help us here? So if you really have a plan and you're concerned,
but Senator, how could you have a plan in the absence of a land use policy? I know that Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Peter David, indicated that land use policy would be coming on stream, but in the absence of a proper policy in place to regulate how land should be utilized, then wouldn't you say that can affect how people utilize the very limited land that we have in Grenada?
This is correct, and that's a whole topic for itself. I afraid to even start digging into, but that's a big issue, and it just shows the lack of concern, the lack of learning, the lack of trying to find a solution for feeding our people. Now, I was following St. Vincent news, and about 2 or 3 months ago, the government started looking at, well, we need to regulate the export of livestock to Grenada, because that is also interfering with the livestock that is available for the Vincentians themselves. What have we done? All I'm hearing is talk. We plan to get insemination. We plan to get better breed. We plan, and that is word plan, because you're not even seeing that in any document. So I would say from where I sit is that my appeal is that our farmers, our fisher folks, we need to continue doing what we are doing, because at the end of the day, we still have an obligation within our profession to provide food for the nation as best as we can. At the government end, the government need to step up and do what it's supposed to do and focus. For the first time, show some focus that food and so on is important. When there is issues of crime, you see how they approach it. When there is issues of many other topical issues, there is some committee looking at
Well,
some.
except the Minister of Agriculture will vehemently disagree with you on that score. He would say that they have addressed this issue. They have put mitigating policies in place to deal with this food security fallout that not only Grenada, but the entire world is experiencing. What say you?
Well, I like to look at the results and look at the evidence. And all you need to do is to speak to the families, speak to the community, and you'll see a different story. So I don't want to debate that, because they need to have a guarantee system, meaning that we need to have a national committee, almost like how this zero hunger, where you have the key stakeholders on board, you have strategies, you figure out how you're going to create storage. For example, the MNIB in its whole construct is also set up in such a manner to ensure that there is certain level of storage, preservation, etc., to guarantee enough food for us to eat. So even in our hospitals, our key institutions, our prisons, we have to ensure that there is food. And so what is Grenada plan to ensure that we have sufficient food in this country? Now WASA will tell you, or water regulator will still tell you, store X amount of water for so much days, because you need to ensure that in case water go, you have water. What are they telling us about food? Is it, well, find your food? If you can find your food, fine. But we know that when there is no food and when food gets scarce, man, as we say locally, turn this. And we don't want to get to that stage. So we need to do it. It's not only a government responsibility, our farmers are doing, the fisher folks are doing, and the sort of support that is needed to create that dent, because it's not just the business as usual buying and selling. You're going specifically, Kellan, to address some matters. So for example, you may say, we need to ensure we have X amount of root crops, Dashin, Tanya, Edos. We need to have X amount of bananas. So you have you're not widespread. You look at some key interventions and how do you ensure it happens through the different farmers, the different farms, and so on. Now, if you have a committee in place where you could have multiple ideas being bouncing around and discussing, then those things could happen. But when you operate in a vacuum, isolated, well, you know how this works. If you alone is holding this program, it's only one perspective.
Right, that's right.
This is what we need. And so when you go back to the revolution, which was despite what persons may say, it was very inclusive in terms of the views of the people. And that is why you had a lot of changes and improvement taking place during those time. And agriculture was moving forward. Our food security was moving forward. What is the plan? What is the plan? The school feeding program, to me, should be a key part of addressing that. That would reduce a lot of the burden that our households have currently. That is one major issue. You look at meat production. Kellan, let us look at the abattoir. Because all of this part, the abattoir that is established in Maribo, as part to improve our whole livestock production and livestock and meat available. I visited there about 2 weeks ago, and I was shocked. I was shocked to realize that the folks are harvesting, they are preparing the animals outside of the designated facility that we are paying, I think, loan for. We are paying back. This is a loan from CDB. And it's not in use. And I understand it's not in use for more time than ever, because it breaks down and you have to wait on some technician to fly in to fix it. And after 2 months, it breaks down again. All this is part of our food security mechanism. So yes, you may hear that we are doing, but I always say, let us look at the results. Okay. And so I believe that for the production end, our farmers or fishers, they are committed. But the support specifically to support the food sector, to support the hotel sector, they must be guaranteed that there will be enough food, locally enough, for the tourists when they come. Then we also have to look also at the issue of wastage. That's another key factor. It's been said up to 20-30% of food is wasted for different reasons. So we need to look and see how do we cut down. How do we also do, I don't necessarily want to say value added, but how do you do different preservation, whether it's frozen, whether it's dried, whether it's pickling at the household level? I recall, my life living within the US, and most homes you go to, you see they're doing their own little pickling of the different things. And even in a big country like America, the household is doing its own little. How much person is doing little pickling in the house right now?
I remember growing up as a child in Pomrose, the best village in Grenada. I have a bias there for Pomrose, but I remember folks using cassava for different inputs, right? To make
Correct.
different things, and I wonder. And then of course you also had, of course, Pomrose is a rural village, but you had such self-sustaining activity around food, right? You went to the land, you lived off the land. You made your garden. It was more than kitchen garden. It was a lot of land that we had, and we still have. But I wonder what has changed. Has there been that move, that rural to urban move that has caused that shift in mindset with respect to how we view eating what we grow and growing what we eat?
No, Kelani, see, I will tell you, there is something called consistency of purpose and focus. And when you lose, and there's another word also called confidence. Confidence that the people can deliver, confidence that they can do. If you lose hope in our farmers and our productive sector, then you it's like you go to the bank for a loan, and the bank is not confident that you're able to pay them back. The bank will not give you the loan. Likewise, we need policymakers, we need institutions that provide the confidence, that have the confidence that the farmers, the fishers, whoever it is, can do what they say that they can do. That is the confidence. The buying institutions can say, I have the confidence that you will deliver and you can produce. That is a significant factor that would cause things to happen. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you need the whole issue of the focus. We want to produce more food such that we can ensure that we get food, we get the right food when we need it. If I don't believe this as a policymaker, an administrator, as a manager, then how can it be translated down? As I say, look at what happens successfully in other things for other things, and we can easily translate it to things that we want to make successful. Most time in the business world, you speak about, they call it benchmarking and all of those things. I don't want to use those technical terms, but this is what we're speaking about. If you figure out how you can do, because we do a lot of good things. So why is it only happening for certain things in certain ways, but not for our agriculture system? This is my concern. We are quickly could form a committee for this, a committee for that, some thing for that. But when it comes to say, let us sit down and discuss our food security to ensure that we have food to feed our nation in this crisis. Well, in fact, what is dangerous, and our listening public need to be following, and we need to keep sharing this information. More and more, as I was reading before this program, since the Ukraine war, and even since the COVID came on stream, more and more countries are restricting the exportation of key products, are putting high tariffs on the exportation of a lot of products out of the country to ensure that their food stay in the country for their individuals. They have the strategic reserves to ensure that the nation can get food. What are we doing? Instead, we are saying, let us see how we can export more, which is good, so that we can get more money into the country. Foreign exchange, yes. But then what will we eat? What are we eating?
I think
And
I think we lost you
this is the
there,
paradox.
Senator. I think we lost your audio there. Let me just see what's happening here. Hold on. All right, Senator, go ahead. Let's see if we can hear you again.
Yeah. I'm not sure where you left off, but what I
Yeah,
was saying is that the
we seem to have
policies of
lost your
countries.
audio there. Folks, we will take a quick break and come back. We're having some technical issues. Just stand by.
Okay.
Why we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are.
These are the cards that I have drawn that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the
But
public,
you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. All right, let's see if we can. Senator, go ahead now.
Yeah. So what I was saying last, just in case that was cut off, is the whole issue of the policy of many countries since COVID and even with the Ukraine war, that they are now restricting the exportation of key food items, and also even equipment and certain things, resources that we in the developing countries would need, and that now is going to create more problems for small countries like us. Whilst at the same time, we are pushing to export so that we can be able to bring foreign exchange into the country. So whilst we are doing that hard, trying to find monies, we cannot live, we cannot eat money. We need to eat food. So we are fighting, and then we speak about, oh, our food import bill is so high. Our food import bill is so high because we are failing to do what we're supposed to be doing. We are failing. So for example, Keller, let's look at it. We speak about the bushing program on the roadside. I speak about this over and over. I don't have a problem, as I keep saying over and over, if this is a strategy to keep the roads clean. That's fine. But we can mix it and say, how can we use some of this labor? I'm not dealing with the money, some of this labor to go into specific production of food products, etc., that would help us feed ourselves. What is so difficult for that? Because all the monies that might be collected and spent by clearing the roads, still there is no food. So if you spend half and half, then I think you will be better off as a nation. So it comes back to the whole issue of wisdom, the issue of interest, the issue of focus. And sometimes farmers say, boy, we know you're trying, but we're not too sure if they're listening. And the only how you would know if someone is listening, as an old ex-teacher myself, is that when you do the test, you would see the results of the test, whether the child failed or whether the child is passing and giving the correct answers. And the question is, what are the answers we are seeing? Are we seeing more food? Are we seeing more accessible to food? Are we seeing more nutrition food locally? That we should say, well, we are fine, then no problem. Or is it that we don't have food? Is it we're seeing increasing input so that it become more inaccessible because the cost of these products are so much? And of course, the farmers need to ensure that they get a return, because otherwise they themselves would be in problems at managing a home. So we cannot sit down in our own little silos and be successful for a national issue as food security to ensure that the 110,000 plus of us can continue to live everyday healthy lives. This to me is more important than the issue of election, the issue of anything you can think about now. This is more important.
Mm-hmm.
The strategy
Senator,
to ensure that food is available to feed the 110 plus mouths in Grenada. That to me is maybe the most important thing that is facing this country right now. And do we have a strategy for that?
And that
I would like to.
I'm sure that's a question that all of the policymakers. We quickly have to get to the next segment.
Sure.
But certainly we will be having a panel segment dedicated to food security, because this is an ongoing conversation that we believe media needs to be covering in more detail. because there are so much layers and so much nuances to it. We did not even get to the issue of fisheries, another sector that you represent, against the backdrop of what we saw protests in Guelph recently. But quickly, Senator, there is an ongoing, I believe it's an ongoing, and I'm going to share the screen here. There is an ongoing food security study that is being done by CARICOM. Let me see if I can pull it up here. So it's the Caribbean COVID-19 Food Security and Livelihoods Impact Survey. And the Caribbean COVID-19 Impact Survey was launched by CARICOM to gather data on livelihoods, access to markets, and food security, and provide snapshots of these impacts over time. And so I was able to look at the numbers from Grenada. And, it's interesting, food insecurity experience. And that one stood out to me. The question was there a time in the past 30 days when you experienced the following? And then it goes on to list the various variables with respect to food insecurity. Now, this is recent data. This is a February. This was February 2021, February 2022.
I think I read that sometime. Yeah.
Yes, and on the dashboard it says food security inexperience, and that stood out. I only ate a few kinds of foods. 54% of respondents said so. The other one that stood out to me was, I worried I would not have enough food to eat. 37% of respondents have responded, both 2021 to being worrying about that. That's in February 2022. We do see that increase there. I ate less than I thought I should. In February 2022, 39% of respondents said they ate less than they thought they should. And if you notice that there is a trend lines towards food insecurity. And that is something, I believe, that is a conversation that needs to continue to happen, Senator. So we want to welcome you back.
Yeah, well, I just two comments on that, because I actually came across this, and there were some questions I know some individuals raised from the scientific perspective in terms of who are polled, and the whole integrity, and I have my thoughts about that too. Because even the foods, what are the foods are we talking about? Is it KFC? Is it local chicken? Is it yams and dashing? And so the questions there are a little bit too vague to me, because you should be asking in terms of local products. Because is it, I want to eat a lot of rice, a lot of wheat products, which I don't grow here. So that is one section of the survey. So I'm just using a sort of critical thinking approach to the point. But the point is, though, that when these surveys are done, the fact is that they are using this data to make decisions. And of course, it needs to be maybe a little bit more granular so we can drill down. So I still, because otherwise you could make decisions and direction that create problem. But I would say the fact of the matter is, we know that there is a challenge. The price of products are increasing. The scarcity on the shelves of certain products are existing. And we need to start looking to ensure that we can produce more of what we need at our household level to ensure that there is some basic food. As I say, I remember as a young boy growing up, we had pigs, we had goat, we had fowl, and all of those things, because this is the way that as a nation, we have to feed ourselves. We need to use our pen money and all of those things. Yesterday, I was on Batway Beach, and I saw a gentleman picking up a set of the whole sargassum. And I guess he might be going to make some compost or so and so. There are some good things that is happening. But you see, to feed 110 mouths, it cannot be happening in silos.
110,000,
110,000 mouths, yeah. So yes, Kellan, as I say, I mean, I'm open, I'm ready, for more dialogue as we get, because we can look much deeper in a lot of areas. And we have to start just about old talk. I'm not here for old talk purposes. We need to be able to cause real change. And the nation, our farmers, our fishers, we have to continue to do what we have to do despite all other things. Because at the end of the day, come high, as I say, jump high, jump low, we must feed ourselves, and we must not forget that mission. I don't want us, because only this morning my neighbor brought me some papa, some corn, some blogger. And that is again is how we lived before. So even wondering about where do you buy, you can share, you may have some rock fig, you may have some dashin, and you share. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that as the old time sake. So that whole issue of
I grew up in a rural community, so I have an intimate understanding.
Right. So
of
that part also, Kellan, I think also would help to reduce that anxiety, because there are some persons who have abundance there, more than they really need at any one point in time. So, but not sharing it can lead to wastage, because sometimes the person don't have the cash to buy it. So that sense of community, I think, is what is also going to help us. I believe the school feeding program need to be increased to the manner that parents can say, let my child go to school and I don't have to worry about feeding them, because the nation will take care of that. And that's a big burden of everybody. And of course, we need the policy at the highest level. I call for that only, that a cabinet subcommittee or parliamentary committee to look at the whole issue of agriculture and food security. I saw this many years ago as a young boy, as I say, in the 70s, and we continue to be haunted. But 10 years ago, we had the same problem, and it was exacerbated by the issue of the financial crisis within the world. Now, we end up with the COVID, and we end up with war. And that now make it even more complicated, because you have the minds of individuals playing mind games of power on everybody. What is Grenada doing? What significant direction have we done to ensure that food would be available, even if it's one item, two items? We must be worried. We must be worried. We must be worried. I mean, even if we say, look at Guyana. Guyana has just bought, I think it's 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 black belly ships from Barbados, and they're bringing it into Guyana because they realize that there's a market for meat, for mutton. I think it's about $25 million or how much, $1 billion in the country, in the Caribbean, and they now are embarking to produce enough livestock so that they can even export back to Barbados. This is smart thinking. What have we done? I'm still waiting, and all this is part of.
Yeah, so, Senator, I hear your passion. You're very passionate about the sector and your advocacy in the Senate. Viewers and listeners, in the interest of time, I know there are lots of questions there for you. I would just take one quick question and give you a chance to ruminate on that. Not live, but the Senator on a previous program on another media, I asked you about aileron as and helping to find a market for the farmers and fisher folks who produce lots of crops. And I believe you get the essence of the question.
Yes,
Are
you
able to follow up to that?
Yes, actually, what I did specifically in this matter, and I'll say two things from the aileron, is that in my previous work in MNIB, I know we'd have did serious work with the aileron farmers in terms of purchasing the watermelons directly out of Sotes and out of Guava. I can't remember the farmer's name. And I've also spoken to the folks out in the SIAP, that's the Rural Enterprise Development Unit, where they are looking at the climate smart approaches. And I've had a discussion there with one of the project officers that we need to look and see how we can provide support to aileron, both in terms of the marketing, both in terms of the climate smart approaches. And of course, that was not maybe on the original program. So yes, gentlemen, I see that message constantly. Certain things I don't report back, but I have had discussion with the SIAP regarding that specific matter in aileron. And they say, well, there are other things happening now, but definitely we will engage there. Okay?
All right. Senator, thank you so much for this spirited conversation. We will be inviting you back. Of course, as a programming note, we did invite an expert from the Ministry of Agriculture to appear on the program this week as well. But unfortunately, he was unable to make it. So we thank Senator Sinclair for being here. And again, Senator, I hope to engage with you at some other points in the future.
Sure. Thank you, Kellan. Best wishes always. And thanks to our listeners and viewers for at least hearing me out. And of course, comments and suggestion is always welcome as I continue to do my representation. Thank you and best wishes to everyone and to all the mothers. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right.
Good.
Okay, folks. Now the second segment, the second segment of the Bubb Report comes to you compliments S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, a Caribbean family-owned funeral service. They offer a full range of funeral services at affordable prices in New York City. They can be reached on 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity. And stand by, folks, as we get to the second segment. We'll take that quick break, and we would be right back.
We are Grenadians. Home is always home, no matter where on this earth we may roam. We are thankful for the support you have provided over the years, your remittances, donations, visits, and technical knowledge. The way you promote our beloved nation far and wide to your friends, co-workers, and family members has not gone unnoticed. Today, we are proud to unveil a new policy that you, our diaspora, have helped us develop as another step in strengthening this relationship. This policy will help shape how we support your desire to work. Short-term or long-term, Grenada can be part of your career or entrepreneur business plans. Live, retire in paradise. Help build the local economy through real estate and foreign exchange while living your best life and bring your family and friends. Give time, talent, knowledge. Help us build the local economy by sharing the skills and talents you have gained with our youth. Donate to causes that match your interests in community. The Office of Diaspora Affairs has been revamped to lead this process and to answer any questions you may have. Call, email, or drop by to visit the new office at the National Museum, Yonge Street, St. George's, or register on the website so that we can keep in touch.
And welcome back, folks. We have an interesting panel lined up here, and we decided to gather very passionate Grenadians in the Grenadian expatriate community who continue to give back and contribute to Grenada's development in what some would consider to be the 16th constituency. And so when people say that Grenadians abroad should be quiet about politics or be quiet about issues of national interest in Grenada, I remind folks that we are the 16th constituency, and I would present data later in this segment that really reflects the impact that the 16th constituency has on Grenada's national development. And of course, we are going into a national election, and the role of the 16th constituency always comes into sharp focus at this time. So I wish to welcome our guests. All first time, two of the guests are first time visitors to the Bubb Report, so we're very happy to have them here, as well as Mr. John Crow Alexander, who is a returning guest to the Bubb Report. And joining us from Montreal, Canada, is Gemma Rayburn-Baines, a community activist, a connoisseur of Grenada's cultural promotion in Montreal, and she will tell us more about that, as well as Valerie Gordon, also a community activist. I believe both ladies know each other. And John Crow Alexander, who does a lot of community activist work in New York, but he's also a philanthropist. Every time I see John, he is on some port somewhere sending items to Grenada. He's on with some container somewhere, massive containers with beds, bed sheets, pampers, equipment for the hospital, things like that. So we are very happy that you can join us, Mr. Alexander. Thank you all.
We prefer John Crow.
John Crow. John Crow. All right. Panel, welcome to the Bubb Report again. Now, John, I want to begin with you. Talk to us about, historically, the importance of the Grenadian diaspora in Grenada's national development and the role that we play in national development in Grenada.
Well, before I answer your question, let me acknowledge the ladies on the panel and say Happy Mother's Day to all of those who are mothers and want to be mothers and almost mothers, listening to the program and watching the program as well. Well, I'm in New York, first of all, and hi, Valerie, good to see you, Val, and good to see you, Gemma. By the way, Kellen, I got an award from Gemma, organization out of Montreal a couple of years now. Thank you so very much. Publicly,
very well.
Thank you.
Very welcome, very well.
For
Very well deserved.
For my activism. But anyway, the 16th constituency is one that is very, very strong in all the areas where Grenadians find themselves, whether we're in Atlanta, in Florida, in Montreal, in Toronto, in New York here, Washington, where you are. The Grenadians who live outside of Grenada remain passionate about Grenada. You can take a Grenadian out of Grenada, but you cannot take the Grenadian out of that Grenada. You cannot take Grenada out of the Grenadian. And so that we make sure, myself included, that families, friends, associates, etc., are well off or are doing better, if I could use that word. Those of us who travel, we look back and we give back, and we do so selfishly, not looking for anything in return. And one of the cries that I hear a lot of is that, oh, John could even say thank you. And I say to them, that's all right. They don't have to say thank you, but we know that they appreciate what they got. I've been working now with two organizations in particular, three technically, with the hospitals in Grenada, with the GARP, you know Madeline Williams very well. I understand that she's a relations to you, Dr. Bubb, right? Mm-hmm. As well as Hilary Gabriel with GNCD. And through these organizations, I'm able to do a lot of the things that I'm doing. Focusing on the 16th constituency, very easy for me to say. Grenadians is a tradition that we have. We send things home as much as we can, as often as we can, and without going into listing names of people that we give stuff to. That's not important. We just make sure that folks get. Now, in preparing for this program, one of the things that I found out between the two support groups, the political parties, and I know that's not where the question is, but the two political parties have support groups in New York. And speaking to both groups in different places, different times, over the years, they have contributed in the vicinity of several $1 million, not just hard money, but in terms of in-kind material that they have sent home, and ensuring, that the constituents and that the ministers, etc., have the things that they need in order to help the constituents that they represent.
You are absolutely you're absolutely correct about that, and the same question to you, Mrs. Raybert Baines, and to you, Valerie, with respect to that material contribution of the diaspora to Grenada's development. Gemma, I would start with you.
Okay, fine. Oh yes, this is something that we enjoy doing. I left Grenada when I was a very young girl, 13 years old. So I've spent most of my life here. But believe me, Grenada is always in my mind. I've worked with for years with different organizations, and all we do is think about Grenada. We've shipped so many items to Grenada. I know that the World Bank had estimated that it's about $30 million, I'm sure. That was 2013. So I'm sure there's more that we've contributed to the island, to the national social environment of the island, and also the economic development. Just this year during the pandemic, we've sent our organizations here, the NMP Support Group and the Spice Island Cultural Festival, and we joined with the Grenada Association of Montreal, and we sent thousands of dollars of PPEs to Grenada. We answered the call. The Derek James, who is the Diaspora office, he made a call to us to help, and we certainly did. And it also built a community here in Montreal because Grenadians came together to pack all the stuff and pack and ship the barrels. So it also brings the community here in Montreal together to work together to help Grenada. It's not just one group or one person doing it. It's all the groups getting together and doing a community outreach. So I think it's really, really important, and we enjoy doing it.
Mm-hmm. Valerie, you need to unmute the mic and proceed. Yes, go ahead now.
Good morning on a special, very nice Mother's Day in Montreal. And thank you to you, Dr. Bubb, for the invitation to be on this program. A special hello to Gemma, who we know well, our friends, neighbors here in Montreal.
That's right.
Well known for her long-standing contribution from the diaspora to Grenada and to also building the community here. And of course, I'd like to say a very special hi to John Crow, who I know from childhood because we are both from St. Andrews, watching each other, coming from St. Joseph's Convent and him from SAS. For all these years, he was my bigger sister's companion, but it is really nice to see you, John Crow. But Kellon, let me go right into some details regarding the contributions of the diaspora. I'll start with the fact that in pure remittances from abroad that are accounted for in the national budget and by the Statistics Department, in 2021, a total of $123.53 million came to Grenada or went to Grenada in remittances from abroad, which translates into about $46.2 million US dollars. And for the national budget, that represents, for GDP, about 6%, 6 to 7% of GDP. So for the average family, say earning $100 a month, if you would think of, say, $7 of that being a contribution from the diaspora, right? Now, this doesn't account for the contributions that are made directly from one family to the other. So for example, when people go home to visit, for a funeral, for vacations, there is money exchange most times between family members, or they employ somebody who they pay for cleaning or whatever it is, right? Then you have the barrels. I'm not sure that the value of the barrels that are sent, and people know what the barrel business is like for Grenadians, that are sent home are included in this value. Add, like Gemma was saying, emergency situations, right? Where the volume of that amount goes up dramatically in a matter of a few weeks, a few days, a few months. So post-Ivan, and as Gemma mentioned just now, in the context of the COVID and so, people respond immediately and the amount goes up dramatically from what the average amount is, right? And then there are contributions directly to institutions like the Home for the Aged, the hospitals, etc. So those are more hard currency values. But let's look at the technical support, the expertise that Grenadians offer either to institutions or to individual members of their family, supporting them about where they should go to school, etc. Or emotional support. Many family members call to their friends, their members, or relatives abroad when they're in difficulty, whether it is the loss of a loved one, or some kind of trauma, they often call to their friends. In fact, I have friends who tell me that we get news and information about Grenada before them who are living in Grenada. Then add the contribution to tourism. We are always promoting Grenada as a tourist destination. Gemma could speak very well to that because she does an excellent job when that is concerned. And you'll be surprised that there are many people that even me who just came to Canada not too long ago compared to Gemma, come across people who never heard of Grenada. And we try to make it our duty. In fact, most of them think about Grenada when the reference is sometimes, oh, we only heard about it from the US invasion of Grenada. So because of the smallness of the island, up until today, many people do. But we promote Grenada all the time. So I'll stop here for the moment because these are some very specific ways in which the diaspora all over, I'm not just talking about here, contribute to our homeland.
So now let us segue into the politics, because that is part and parcel of the Grenadian identity in the diaspora as well, right? But what I do find, I would say anecdotally at least, I do find that even though folks may have divergent political opinions in the diaspora, there tends to be a camaraderie, a coming together of sorts, even during the heated political season, or especially during times of crisis. People still maintain that camaraderie and that collegiality as Grenadians. Yes, and that is something that I've observed. But John Crow, let us talk about the history of political party support groups in the diaspora and the work that support groups do in supporting the political parties at home. I know historically, for example, Elvin Nimrod, famously, the late Elvin Nimrod, the member of parliament, former member of parliament for Carriacou and Petite Martinique, the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, he had a very robust and strong support group that supported his independent candidacy back in 1995. So talk to us about that history.
Well, that history goes back. There's a guy named Jude Cameron. He's retired now and lives in Grenada. And Jude is one of the people, along with DJ. Those of you might remember Ali J, heavyweight DJ Ali J, and Eugene Pursuit. They are, if I'm not mistaken, were some of the players who created the first NDC support group, speaking specifically now of the party. And then James Archibald, we don't see him around as much anymore, but James Archibald is another young man who years ago created or helped to create the first support group for NNP. Now, as a matter of fact, as a part of information, when the first time that Dr. Mitchell came to New York, James tried to set up an interview. As a matter of fact, I was at York College at the time, and James brought Dr. Mitchell to Queens, to York College, for us to do an interview, and something happened, and but it never happened. It never took place. But James was very, very active, and that activism, in terms of these support groups, they've been around for a while. Now, one of the things, and it's unfortunate today, that we no longer have the, if you will, the consulate office. Like right now, I don't even know who the ambassador to the UN is. But when I first came to New York, I remember there was a big ball at Medgar Evers College. That was the very first time. My mother made sure that I went to this, and it was a group of Grenadians, if you will, not necessarily affiliated to a party, but nonetheless the ruling party that was in office at the time. This group was one of those groups that were created in terms of having this celebration of Grenadians, and then funds collected, sent home and so forth, to, it might have been Gary in office at the time, I'm not sure, but this is going back, several 40 or more years ago. So that there's always been a group, or there have always been groups, yes, of Grenadians who, whether they are on one side or the other of the conversation, that were there, if you will, creating funds or raising funds on behalf of whichever party that is in office or that is running for office. One of the questions I was asking around as we prepare for this program is, when they collect this money, is the money going to the party or is it going to the government? And everybody said,
I think it should go. It should go to the party. It shouldn't go to the government. I mean, they're raising funds on behalf of their party.
Oh, yes. but we've had situations where ministers of government who will visit, because anytime we have the meetings, and I'm saying we, right? Anytime these meetings are held, the hat is passed, and a substantial amount of money is collected at these meetings. And whomever that visiting minister is, that money is handed to them. Technically, that money should be going into the coffers of the government because you're a government minister. But what checks and balances are in place to make sure that happens is another story for another day. But in terms of the organizations, there have always been, and subsequently, I mean, New York kind of have the oldest arrangement of Grenadians abroad, I would say. But subsequently, in these other enclaves where Grenadians are, they have created their own versions of support groups for the parties as well.
And that's what we want to do. We want to expand beyond New York here. And Gemma, talk to us about the NNP support group in the Montreal area. Is there one in Montreal separate from the one that they have in Toronto? What does that look like?
Yes, we have our own NNP Montreal support group here. It's a group of Grenadians, of course, but we have to have a balance. We don't just blatantly support one political party. Wherever there's need, we are there. When the NDC was in power, we also supported and sent computers to the government for the schools. We're trying to help the Grenada instead of more just one political party. So we do have a balance with that. When the Prime Minister comes to Montreal, because he's in power now, it's the NNP support group in Montreal is the go-to group. Like, we would arrange, get the hall, the venue, or whatever is needed to make sure that his trip, our visit to Montreal, is a success and goes off without a hitch. So the support group does that. We take him to visit other Grenadian businesses. When the new hospital was building here in Montreal, we took him and the contingent that came from Grenada to see the new hospital, to talk to the administrators and stuff like that. This is what we do. We also are in the organization. Some of us are in the Spice Island Cultural Festival. Some of us are with the Grenada Nationals Association. So we always help. And so our support group is broad. We help anything that is to do with Grenada, we give. So this is basically what.
How old is that support group?
I would say it's about 16 years. We've been around since Dr. Mitchell was there. Before then there was the NDC came in and then he came back. So we've been there for like 3 terms.
3 terms of this current administration.
Yeah. So we've always been helping. I know when the NDC was there, I sent, and the group, we sent 10 computers down to the government, the Ministry of Education at that time, to give to the schools. So it's, we work to support Grenada. And this is basically what we are here for, to support the island and the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique.
Valerie, talk to us about the opposition National Democratic Congress. Now, I know that they had, and again, just to preface this, that you are here in your individual capacity, not necessarily representing the group. That needs to be said on background so that people understand the context of your appearance on the program. But you are very familiar with that organization. So tell us about that support group. Is there a support group in Montreal, in Canada? What does that look like for the NDC?
You're muted.
You need to unmute. You need to unmute again.
Yes, absolutely. And when Nazim Burke, as leader of the party, the NDC came here a couple of years ago, I was key in organizing, hosting activities for him here. And I am an ardent supporter of the NDC, very active, ardent supporter of the NDC, regardless of who I represent in this moment. So let me be clear about that. I want to speak to something, Kellon, that you mentioned, Justin, that I think is of great significance. I lived in Jamaica for about 4.5 years when I went to study. And one of the experiences that shook us to the core, being unused to that, was that during an election campaign, there were kids in a particular school uniform color that was the same color like one of the parties that could not travel through a certain district that supported that party without being harassed. And I'm talking about primary school children. People were careful not to wear certain colors within certain districts if the colors clashed, as they would say. In fact, there came a time where the color of that school uniform was changed to a non-party color. And so when, over the years, I see the tribalism that has arisen over yellow and green in Grenada, it gives me great pause, great concern. Maybe hadn't I lived that too, because it wasn't like that before. There was a time when it wasn't that important what the color of the party you support was, what you were. I've had situations where people tease me about wearing green coming into a public space, and I had to say to them, I will wear green wherever I want to wear green because it's my favorite color. But I say it because I think it's a key consideration for where we're going with the color tribalism that has been happening in a small country like Grenada, where we all related as if maybe the demise of the revolution and some of the issues that arose among families and friends didn't teach us a good lesson. You know, so that is something I would like to see change. And maybe the calypso about the oil down where we have yellow and green mixing is a good example. And Gemma's point about how we attempt these things here in the diaspora is important, because you come to the outside of Grenada, and for those of us who've been here for a while, when we didn't know that back home, you come outside of Grenada and that's not the case. And it is absolutely not the case. So it's a lesson we could take from those of us who are here to make sure we help Grenadians, our people, understand that that is not a good thing for our society, especially because we are so small. But let me go quickly, though, to the issue of the National Democratic Congress. In 1987-88, I think it was, yes, 87-88, the NDC New York chapter was formed as one of the older support groups in the diaspora. There may have been one before, I'm not sure, but at least the ones I know about. Then there is one, a recent one that is being started in Florida with the recent visit of the political leader, Dickon Mitchell. There is a great enthusiasm in Florida, and so a support group is being is started there. There is one in the UK. I know at least one, there may be more than one in the UK. We have a small unit in Montreal, and the major support group exists in Toronto, and that has been there for several years as well. So throughout, you have people who are engaged in support group activities, and I must endorse what Gemma says, that here in Montreal, Grenadians try to associate with each other and not allow this color business to get us into all of these problems.
Well, I wish that you can, both you and Gemma can go on a civic store of Grenada to really educate the people on how they should be working together, regardless of what side they support. Gemma, any thoughts there?
Of course, of course. But, you know, here in Canada, for Canada Day, we wear blue because our flag is blue. We wear the blue color, blue and white. And then for Canada Day, we wear the red and white because of the flag. So I really don't see being such a big problem if you want to wear green or you want to wear yellow or red. It doesn't really matter. To me, it's just the thinking. It's just a color. You know, so we have to think broader. I think we have to have more of an open mind, and the people, maybe Jamaica has a different way with the kids. The school kids are clashing with the other color of the, you know, I don't see that happening in Grenada. I really don't. I think people are very proud to wear the color of the party that they support. When the time is needed, like when there's a rally, you see everybody with their green or you see everybody with their yellow. To me, it looks pretty. So that's how I look at it. It's pretty. And it represents Grenada. We're all Grenadians, no matter who we support.
Yeah. John, did you want to come in here? Come in here, yes.
If I could jump in here. One of the proudest moments in New York was when Ivan hit Grenada. And the New York community mobilized. And it was the first time, well, I mean, I shouldn't say the first time, but it was the first time on a community level. Because when we go to parties, we party regardless of who we are. There's no politics involved. Ivan hit, and it was a very interesting kind of a dynamic that took place where members of both support groups literally were rubbing shoulders and shoulder to shoulder, assisting in packing the various containers that were, items that were collected and shipped home in response to the hurricane. And so that, yes, we were, kibitzing with each other and teasing each other and so forth. Well, look at the end, and don't worry with him, he's a NNP, and don't worry, this one is a NDC. And it was in a jovial kind of a which way. So that tribalism thing that Val is talking about, unfortunately, what I see happening is that if I have an opinion, and this is in Grenada, and now we have social media so that we're able to actually exchange those ideas even in real time. So that I have an opinion on something, and I express that opinion, and somebody's gonna read it as well because I'm an NDC. Or another person reads it, well, obviously you're going to say what you're saying because you're an NNP. And the statement that is being made has nothing to do with either party. It's just a matter of an issue. Like, for instance, the food security thing that you were talking about earlier. So you take a certain position on that, right? And because you might take a certain critical, like the senator was talking, thinking of it critically and looking at it from a pragmatic position, you express that. No, somebody gonna take issue with it because of the position you're taking and fail to recognize the neutrality of that statement or comment that you might be making. And we're riding on a slippery slope in that regard. And I blame it on the leaders of the parties, because if the leaders of the parties would put the word out and say cease and desist, because at the end of the day, like Gemma just said, we're all Grenadians, and when we do, those of us who are out here assisting Grenada, we are assisting Grenada regardless of what party, whomever you support. When I send home items, right, and Ms. Gabriel is distributing it, or Sado in Grenville is distributing, or Sister Maudlin is giving stuff out, there's no question asking, well, who party you support? That you need a bed, a hospital bed, or you need a walker, or you need a rollator, or you need a wheelchair, that you need that wheelchair. Is that no question is asked as to, well, what's your politics? Because I don't care about your politics. The fact is that you have a broken leg and you need a wheelchair, or you have an amputated leg and you need a pair of crutches, and it's available, then it's yours. Okay? But no one, and so we have to be mindful. And I'm saying this to those of all those in the audience. We have to be a little bit more mindful as we will comment or criticize those of us in the diaspora, because in the diaspora, while we would have different support groups, etc., yes, and we will go to a fundraiser for this, that, and the other party, but at the end of the day, when there is a need and we are making a barrel, if you will, or a container to send home, it is being sent home to whomever it is that are in need. My friend Rampoon Radio recently teamed up with Kennedy Sweet, and they did a food drive. So they took home a whole 20-foot container of food, and they were not distributing the food based on politics. They were distributing the food based on who are in need. Okay, Small Clothes and Ron from Soul Vibes Radio, again, they recently sent home some boxes of, again, food, right? No, their concentration was Brush Grove, because that's where they're from. And when the stuff goes home, it's not being asked. No one is asking as they distribute the items, well, are you an NNP? Or are you an NDC? Well, if you're an NNP, you can get. Or if you're an NDC, you can get. No.
Well, except John Crow, I would push back there. And again, this is all anecdotal retellings of stories with respect to the aftermath of Hurricane Ivan, for example, and the aftermath of Hurricane Emily. That the support groups, various support groups, raise funds and raise material contributions for Grenada in New York in particular, and the folks who were charged with the responsibility of distributing these items were political operatives of the ruling administration, such that these donations were funneled directly through party operatives, right? And so who benefited from those? Let me finish please let me finish the thought process here. So the question is, yes, was there ever a point where there was a breakdown, sort of in the idea of being politically neutral in how you distribute funds and resources to people in Grenada from the diaspora? Your thoughts?
The only time that I've seen that, Kevin,
yeah,
and where it's coming in as, if you will, through the operative, if you will, yes, is if, for instance, the NNP support group is working with a particular minister. However, generally, and I'm going to speak from my perspective, because I'm one of the lead people who in recent times have been sending large amounts of items home. It is not done, and I could speak to myself position, DJ Ron, DJ Small Clothes, Rampoon Radio, that when these individuals send anything to Grenada, it is not going through no political organization or through any political arm. It's going through people, to Grenadians who are in need, and the commonality is who are in need. If and when it's going through a political operation, that part I have not experienced that. No. Yes, I saw it the first time it happened, where everybody was in that kind of a unified motion, was during the hurricane, if you will, specifically hurricane season. But that if you will, trend continued outside of the hurricane season, and folk continue, like myself and others, continue to send things home regardless of what party the individual supports. And so that is where it is for me. As far as I know, with Gemma and Company in Toronto, in Montreal, as well as in Toronto, that people respond and would send things and donate items, because I have one of the nicest things that happens to me is that I have non-Grenadians who are forever so helpful. I have a Pastor McBarnett from Jamaica who has given me a whole lot of stuff.
I believe he's from St. Vincent, not Jamaica. There is another Pastor McBarnett as well, because there is a Pastor McBarnett from St. Vincent who donates a lot to Grenada as well.
Okay, well,
go ahead.
It could be the same guy because he works in St. Vincent.
Yes.
You know, but anyway, he as a matter of fact, I'll give you a true story. Well, true, all the story I'm telling is true. There are two fetal monitors that I recently brought home, right? That I made sure got to Carriacou, that came directly from Pastor McBurnett. So I'm saying that I have non-Grenadians who know that the needs are there and they're willing to help, regardless of what party one supports, regardless of what color one wears. And the focus here is that if and when people donate, I don't want people donating based on a party. Like I got a call 2 days ago of someone asking me for some items, and I said, well, and they asked me, and I said, I refer them to GNCD, and they wanted to know, well, what's the politics? I said, I don't know, because that's not in the conversation that I'm having with them. You know, it's not important.
Valerie, I saw you had your hand up there. Did you want to jump in?
Indeed. If I might, John and Kellon, let's make a distinction between the intention with which these items are raised or whatever you call those donations are made and what actually happens on the ground sometimes. Because there's a difference. It depends on who receives it in Grenada. And I was in Grenada during Ivan, and I've heard a lot of stories, many anecdotal, some I've seen for myself, where if you appoint only political people who can be perceived as political operatives of one party, especially if it's a ruling party, to be responsible for the distribution, very often it ends up being somewhat partisan. And in the viewpoint of the receivers of the Grenadian population, there were a lot of complaints about that. So let's distinguish between the intention with which these items were raised and sent to Grenada, may be one thing, which is where you are coming from. But very often on the ground, when the distribution happens, the way it goes about, there's a problem. And you see, we have kind of degenerated into a practice where if you support a certain party, you can get jobs, etc. People will tell you that all the time. And if you don't, you won't, or you have to subscribe to certain things. Now, that ought not to be, and we all know that. But there's another element that I wanted to mention, and that is people have the right to support whichever party they want. And as Gemma said, wear the colors to support their party proudly when the time comes around election time. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. When it goes beyond that to the fact that, okay, you feel threatened, or somebody threatens you, or you don't get a job, you hide in, you don't want to go to a certain rally if you're in the opposition because you're afraid you won't get a work. We can't deny these real experiences of people that we have to find a way to correct. And I agree with you, John Crow also, and or Kellon, whoever mentioned it, that a lot depends on what our leaders put out there that generate that kind of attitude or belief in people. The only other point I wanted to make is that, yes, John Crow, it has come to a point where just because you're known to support a particular party, if you make a point of observation in the public space about something, to me, it's gotten so bad that sometimes people don't look at the value of what you're saying, how truthful it is, the analysis you're making. The first conclusion they jump to is that it's a yellow or green, so I won't listen. That does not augur well for our development, because we are a diverse population bringing different points of view, different perspectives into the space, which is so important for our growth and development. So that is one of the dangers that happens when you see in social media, some people, because you make a statement, they don't look at the value of what you're saying at all, because they first go to color. And that is where some of the concerns that I have and many people have, and we need to shift away from that.
Well, I've been accused on several occasions on some Sundays of being a paid operative of the NNP, on other Sundays, a paid operative of the NDC, depending on the topic that is raised. But I suppose it means that I'm doing my job when both sides view you with suspicion. But fundamentally, I believe you're making a valid point here. It's a very important point, and we have to find ways with respect to elevating the discourse. And we also have to appreciate that not everybody has a same worldview. We cannot all think the same. We just can't. We just can't. Everybody in Grenada cannot be NNP supporters. Green. Everybody cannot be yellow NDC supporters. You just can't. You also have people who are in the middle. Gemma.
Well, as scholars say, we better walk naked.
Yes.
We can't wear green and we can't wear yellow. So he's walking naked. So maybe that's a great idea. But I just wanted to go back with sending products home and barrels and stuff. There is an organized structure, which is the Diaspora office, a Diaspora Affairs office in Grenada, and that's headed up by Derek James. And that office is supposed to be coordinating efforts such as disaster relief, school repair, hospital and public health enhancement. So why is it that there's a lack of trust that we send it to the Diaspora office? Because I know that was created just for this reason. So why aren't we doing that? Why are we sending it to this person, that person, and then it gets...
And those anecdotal points were before the Office of Diaspora Affairs was established. And to credit the Honorable Peter David and His Excellency Derek James, and of course to others as well, they were some of the major progenitors of the idea of having that diaspora office. But I didn't mean to cut you. Go ahead, please.
No, because we sent so much for the PPEs for Grenada through the Diaspora office. And we told them we needed to be delivered. This is for the police. This is for the churches. This is for Dr. Braveboy in Sates. And everything was delivered, so maybe that's one way that we can, stop the thinking that, okay, if I'm not a NDC, I won't get anything or stuff like that. So I think we have to utilize the Office of the Diaspora a little bit better.
I have some questions from the audience. Valerie, quickly. Yes.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. The issue of trust, Gemma, that you just mentioned, has become a big issue. And it doesn't appear from the sky, and we have to be very careful that we don't continue to erode the trust by how we deal with these things. So it's going to take some work to build it back up.
And we have a question from the panel, from the audience. To the panel, do you think that we, the diaspora, should take part in our election by absentee ballot and mailing ballots through the Grenada consulate?
I'd like to take a first shot at that, Kellon, if you don't mind.
Yes. Ladies first, yeah. John.
John is getting excited.
It's Mother's Day. It's Mother's Day, John Crow. It's Mother's Day.
There are several considerations for that. Ideally, we would love as Grenadians, as passionate and whatever active Grenadians that we are out in the diaspora, to participate in the election. But it seems to be a very complex issue, and we have to be very responsible and look at a balanced way at it. One of the factors, surprisingly, is that when you look at the statistics, in last year, 2018, 19,000 persons left Grenada, right? All of them will not have stayed outside in the diaspora. But even if you cut that by half, or by quarter and say 25%, 5,000 people left in 1 year into the diaspora. And you multiply that for as many years as Grenadians have been leaving the island. It stands to reason, and maybe it's something that we need to get an analysis on, that there are probably 2 or 3 times the number of Grenadians in the diaspora than are at home in Grenada. So it then creates a situation of trying to determine a wrinkle. Should that number of Grenadians living outside be part of the decision making regarding governance relative to the Grenadians who actually live at home, right? So that's an issue. The other issue is, of course, the practicality of it. How do you actually make it happen? Other countries have done it, and therefore it is not impossible to do. And I mean, I wish we get to the day when we can have that happen. But there are some of these factors that need to be examined in terms of how would you mitigate them to make it happen, because many Grenadians would love to be able to take part in the elections at home, and some actually go back home for it.
Let's hear from Gemma.
Well, I think there are more people living in the diaspora than living in Little Grenada. We only have 100,000 people. Could you just imagine if the people in the diaspora voted, and they don't even live in Grenada, but they're voting for what's going to happen in Grenada? For me personally, the bigger countries do it. The United States does it. But for Grenada, I think that the people living in the diaspora should not vote because it does not affect them. It affects the people. There's 100,000 people in Grenada. If we started voting for who we want to see there and we don't live there, to me, that doesn't make too much sense.
And there is a comparative disadvantage as well. I mean, if you, the population question, but we're talking about, as one of a commenter, Shireen James is saying, I personally feel if you aren't living in Grenada or paying taxes into the Grenadian economy, you shouldn't be able to vote. Yes, you are, as a Grenadian at home, you are living the everyday experience of life in Grenada.
Exactly.
We in the diaspora, we only go there for vacation. A lot of us go down there and we show off. Anyways, let me not go
and
there.
And we run back when mosquito bite us.
Right.
So,
and there are some folks who also, how often are you in Grenada? Certainly you contribute, but I believe on that score, it presents a disadvantage, as you said,
so.
to your point. Absolutely. And John Crow?
Yes. The main drawback to call it absentee voting is infrastructure. We do not have the infrastructure in place, and to build that infrastructure is not a matter of simply saying, okay, you can vote and then cast your vote. That infrastructure has to be so strong because we're smart. We're very, very smart in terms of how we do things. And so those of us who live outside, like you said, we have that quote unquote advantage, if you will, on technology, etc. And the idea of paying the tax and not participating, we're back to that whole taxation without representation kind of a story. It's not as simple as it sounds. Is basically what I'm saying. I wanted to go back to the section earlier, but I lost my point. But when we make contributions to our country, I was successful in getting to bring to Grenada a medical team that did the first set of fistula implants a few years ago. Brought in a team from Hero, Health and Relief, Educational Relief Organization, Health and Educational Relief Organization. Why am I having a tongue-tied thing today? I don't know. Then Michael Booker, recently, just before the pandemic, went to Grenada. He was having some difficulties, went to Grenada, and did not just, and he's doing it through Veronica's Way, an organization that he formed. Installed several, built, not just installed, but built and installed several computer labs at several schools and learning institutions in Grenada. Now, he was not born in Grenada, but his parents are, and his grandmother, in his grandmother's honor, he created Veronica's Way. These actions were not taken because of an NDC government or a NNP government, or a green flag or a yellow flag. These actions were taken to help Grenadians. The 7 fistula implants, nobody asked, well, what party you belong to? That were done, right? And they went back again a couple of years later on and did a follow-up. So the whole color issue is something that we have to get rid of it altogether. In terms of how, again, and I'm putting it in the hands of the leaders, how that is being translated to the supporters. Yes, support who you want to support. Fly whichever flag you want to fly. But at the end of the day, let's have that conversation. What I would like to see happen, and just spinning around on the other side of this conversation, is that our elected officials start entering into debates, as now that we're in the political season, that we start having some political debates on issues that will affect us in the long run, as opposed to this nonsense that is going on right now.
Well, join the line in making that request. I don't think there is a lot of appetite. I mean, in the last 2-3 election cycles, the political organizations in Grenada, well, at least the ruling administration, were asked to sign the political code of conduct, and they have not been doing that. So
Right.
I don't know
Right.
that we're going to have debates, but maybe that is something we, as a diaspora, should be clamoring and advocating for. Certainly, we will be doing that here on the Bubb Report. But we want to take a quick break, folks. It's way past your lunchtime, I'm sure, and it's Mother's Day, so we don't want to keep you all for too much longer. So we'll take a quick break and come back to wrap up the program. And I have a treat. I actually have a treat for you during this segment. This was Dr. Bubb circa Grenada in the year 2000. I will be queuing that video up for you so that you can see how much I've evolved and how long I've actually been in this business of media and journalism. So please stand by. Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
To the cards that I have drawn that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the public...
But you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this?
Well, you're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
When all the hype of greeting the year 2000 was over, the government of Grenada was once again back to the job of administering the affairs of Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique. If anything can be said at all, it will be that they have made serious and progressive decisions that in the end affected all of us as a people.
And that was Dr. Bubb before Kellen became Dr. Bubb, and I worked at the time at NPR. NPR was a media outfit in Grenada between, I would say, 1999 to 2001 or thereabouts. And I credit the former NPR staffers with sharing that clip with me. But I would give the panel an opportunity to provide some. I see Valerie smiling there. Valerie, is there anything you wanted to say?
Well, in terms of last words, I think the party support groups in the diaspora are very important. They are concrete mechanisms by which the persons who support a particular party and so can be active and support their party at home, as well as mobilize whatever support here or in Grenada that they would like to. I think that continues to be a very important component of the overall situation in Grenada. I think the issue of whether Grenadians outside or in the diaspora should be able to vote, I think it needs to be a well-organized conversation, right? So that all the various factors that impact on it can be taken into consideration. You know, we talk about it here and there, but we haven't had a real comprehensive conversation about that and some other issues that I would like to see dealt with at that level. I think this issue deserves a conversation. Of course, you can't compare Grenada to the US or the UK or these bigger countries because the populations are much greater and more of their population are at home in their countries. In fact, there's a smaller percentage of them living abroad. Mm-hmm. So having that smaller percentage vote in the elections will not necessarily, interfere that much or skew the results of the election that much relative to what might happen here. So there are very strong points for and against it. And I think that in itself deserves a much better organized conversation to debate this issue. And I definitely support the matter of, or the call for a debate of our leaders. I think we are of age now to, as the leaders of the various parties, etc., should be able to do that on a national stage so that the people can look at it. Yeah.
As opposed to only speaking to their own audiences and their own bases.
Echo chambers,
essentially. Yeah.
I hope this is not the last opportunity to comment, because I want to talk about an event that the NDC support.
Well, you've actually prefaced that talking point because that is something we will be addressing. And so let us talk about the Montrealers here. I know, for example, that NDC's political leader Deacon Mitchell has had a tour in Florida, and he will be going to New York in a couple of weeks. I also know that the New York NDC support group and the NNP support group, they're having various fundraising activities. So what is happening over there in Montreal? How are you in this particular election cycle supporting your parties? Gemma, I would start with you, and then I will go back to Valerie.
Well, I think I know that this is a hot topic right now. Everybody's excited. Everybody is campaigning on their own. We have not been doing too much with the election. We really don't even know when the election will be called. But I'm sure that we will all get involved when the time comes. I know constitutionally by next year there should be an election, but everybody seems to think that it's going to be sooner. But we have not been focusing on that right now. We're focusing on our big signature event, which is the Spice Island Cultural Day Association Festival, the Spice Island Festival. And we really want to expose Grenada there, because as you know, Grenada won the first World Capital Culinary Award. So that's a big thing. So we're looking on bringing one of the top executive chefs from Grenada, which is Chef Belinda Bishop, and the scholar who's going to come and tell us about walking naked during this election campaign. So this is going to be on July the 9th. So we've really been focusing on that because it's a big thing. We expect about 7,000 people in the park. We're going outdoors after 2 years of doing a virtual festival. So we're moving outdoors. So that will be in Montreal. We welcome everybody to come July 9th, Vinette Park in Montreal. So this is where our focus is, and on the food and of course, and agriculture that we talked about today, on the food of Grenada. So we have, our theme is Grenada, a culinary delight. So, it's nice to end on a high note. And
absolutely. And that is, we will be watching this space and seeing how that festival unfolds there in Montreal.
Thank you.
Sometimes people only think about New York and Brooklyn and Toronto, but there are folks in Montreal who are doing good work as well.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity, Kellon, to come on and talk about, what we do as a support group in Montreal. Thank
Absolutely. Valerie, talk to us about the NDC. What are they doing over there?
Let me quickly endorse as a founding member of the Grenada Spice Isle Cultural Organization in Montreal, who was very excited. The whole Grenadians here were ready for the equivalent of a Grenada Day, and it has taken off very well. So to add my voice to the call for all and sundry to come out and have a good time at this event. But the NDC is in the opposition at this time. And when you're in opposition, you got to get ahead quickly. So despite the fact that the elections has not been called, the NDC is alive and well and roaring, especially with the new leader, Mr. Deacon Mitchell, who has created a lot of groundswell. We've had recently an event in Florida where that even led to the setup of a new Florida support group. The New York chapter that has been, age old and teaching the rest of us it's planning its big event on the 21st of May, a big fundraiser and a town hall meeting. So that is also revving up as well. And here in Canada, in Toronto, we're organizing a huge fundraising dinner on the 21st Victoria weekend in Toronto. The flyers are already out, so we invite all to come and support the work of the party, and hopefully we'll be able to make a connection. We all hope that we can make a connection with New York that night, because many people cannot go to New York or are not able in this moment. So we're hoping to make a connection. So this is a time for you to support and the National Democratic Congress and its new leader with a new agenda and the new energy that it's bringing to the table right now.
All right. Thank you there, Valerie. And thank you for your first appearance on the Bubb Report. We're hoping to have you back. I've watched you on Callistra Farrier's The Narrative, and I learned a lot about you. For example, I was not aware that you were such an instrumental person with respect to the Center for Popular Education. You mentioned Paulo Freire there, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and that made me light up as a scholar.
I was directly trained by him.
And that is an honorable distinction for somebody who knows this man's work.
I feel privileged to have had that.
Yes, that is powerful. That is absolutely powerful. And John Crow, last word to you, sir.
Last word. So Valerie, just to let you know that the chapter and Dr. Bubb, I think I need to make a distinction here. I am not a member of any of the support groups, NNP or NDC, and that's why I'm so passionate about the things that I do when I do what I do. It's not affiliated to any political arm of anything. But Valerie, just so to let you know, the chapter in New York, I'm told, are planning to stream the event, the meeting coming up on the 21st. They're having a meeting tomorrow where some serious decisions are being made. They're in heavy discussions right now. I'm working along with them to try to help them facilitate some of the final things of presentation. Let me just put it in that language. But in terms of this program, Kellen, I appreciate you having me on again. I'm always available and I'm always open to discuss. I would really love to get involved with that conversation on food security in Grenada. But anyway, that's another conversation. But today's event, contributions from the diaspora, people. I have to mention somebody here now. Her name is Joy Rathan. She's one of the organizers with the NNP group in New York, who over the years, Beverly Bain, who passed recently, Beverly has opened her doors and to make sure that visiting prime ministers and or government officials, be it NNP or NDC, that they get the kind of a support that she's able to afford them. Homian Fraser, very supportive. Again, one of the things I really wish that we were able to touch in tonight is the conversation about why we have no representations, be it in New York or in Washington, D.C., as it traditionally has been. Over the years, a young man by the name of Dennis Antoine, he's been an ambassador for Grenada several years, and we see the dismantling, if I use that word, of our ambassadors and or the consul generals offices, and so this is why I'm confused, like when Gemma mentioned about the diaspora desk. So then we got rid of the consulate office and we created a diaspora desk.
John, I need to fact check you there. The diaspora desk is not located in the US. It's located in Grenada. It's a desk that has been set up to facilitate, because one of the difficulties that people in the diaspora who donate always, the frustration is that there is a lot of bureaucratic red tape, and I believe the diaspora desk has been set up to streamline donations, to streamline contributions from the diaspora in a very efficient way, so that so as to reduce that red tape. But also the second fact check there, Grenada does have an ambassador in Washington, D.C., accredited to Washington, D.C., to the OAS. That's Yolan Smith. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm saying, but our consulate and consul general's offices, where in the past we would be able to, if you will, channel like an organization or an individual making a contribution, the consulate office is where you would channel those contributions through. That to make sure that when it gets to Grenada, it gets to where it's supposed to go. Is the point I was making.
Okay.
But we have dismantled that, and so that yes, we have the ambassadors, but those two ambassadors that we have right now, one is in Washington, one is in New York, and trying to get through to them is next to impossible. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate this conversation, and but the point is taken, and we will continue to contribute. I'm working on my 4th container in terms of a promotion, and I'm right now looking specifically for people who could help me find some wheelchairs, as well as continue to help me with some diapers. The adult diapers are in great demand in Grenada, and so if you have contact or anyone you know who may have contact with these items, I appreciate it. You could call me at 917-676-2634. 917-676-2634. Wheelchairs and adult diapers, my focus on this 4th container going to Grenada to help our nationals who are in need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. John Crow, thank you again for making yourself available. Valerie Gordon and Gemma Rabin from Montreal. I trust that it is not as cold in Montreal as it is here in Washington, D.C.
It's hot. We're getting good weather. We're getting good weather now.
Okay,
it's
that's
Mother's
good.
Day.
All right.
Happy Mother's Day.
It is Mother's Day. You need that good weather, and happy Mother's Day to all mothers, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you so much for your appearance on the Bubb Report, and viewers and listeners. This has been another episode of the Bubb Report. We thank you for your continued participation. Please ensure that you're sharing the program so that more people can have an opportunity to see what was a very important conversation today. On behalf of the hardworking producers and the team of the Bubb Report, I am your humble servant, Dr. Kellon Bubb. Have a great week. Bye-bye.